So today I want to talk about shifting, which is an important aspect to address in advanced violin technique, so that you're able to play your shifts easily, so that you're able to play them in tune, and so that you're set up to be relaxed in whatever position you're shifting to. So let's start by talking about the two basic kinds of shifts, old finger shifts and new finger shifts. So as an example, I want to start with my first finger B on the A string in first position. And let's say I'm going to shift up to a second finger E in third position. So in an old finger shift, I'm going to shift on my 1, and then I'm going to play my 2. In a new finger shift, you shift with the finger you're going to play the arrival note with, so that would be more like this. I'm going to shift on my 2, and then I have a new finger shift. So first, a few fundamentals. So the overarching principles in shifting are ease and simplicity of motion, and other principles flow from that. So one of the first general rules is to keep the basic relationship between the hand and the forearm intact. So what's between your hand and your forearm? Your wrist. So you don't want to shift leading with your wrist like this. You also don't want to shift leading with your hand, leaving your wrist behind like that. So both of these things put the wrist at an odd angle, which makes it hard to finger once you reach the new position, and it also adds unnecessary tension. The easiest way to say this is that you want to come all the way up into your positions, which gives each position a more consistent shape, which gives your hand a more consistent feeling, which makes your intonation more consistent. So higher than fifth position, you're going to want to come around the instrument by bringing your elbow a little bit to the right, which helps you finger in the freest way in whatever position that you arrive in. Then when you shift back down, you're going to want to allow your elbow to come back underneath the instrument so that you don't get locked to the right, which is also something to avoid. Another big concept, it can help to practice your shifts with a guide note. So you use a guide note to help know the interval of your shift, to help your hand keep its shape during and after the shift, and also to break down the shift into its parts as you practice, all of which helps your intonation. So in an old finger shift, the guide note is the note that the old finger arrives on in the new position before the new finger goes down. So if I go back to my B to E shift, I start with a B, I shift to third position, my first finger lands on a D in third position, which is my guide note, and then my E goes down. In a new finger shift, the guide note is the note that the new finger departs from in the old position. So here's the old position, and here's my new finger, so I'm on a C sharp. So in that case, I use the C sharp as the starting point for my shift. And that's my guide note, is the C sharp for a new finger shift. So besides helping to keep your hand shape, practicing with a guide note helps you realize also how far you're shifting, which helps you navigate the fingerboard in a general way and know what you're doing. So the B to E shift, the actual interval itself is a fourth, but when I shift, so this is an old finger shift, I'm doing B to D. The actual shift itself is only what B to D is, which is a minor third. So it's actually not as far as the interval itself. And so knowing that helps you understand the geography of the fingerboard a little bit better, and helps you gauge your shifts, the distance. So practicing your shifts with a guide finger. So I want to start with the beginning of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto. So the first shift in the piece is a first finger G in second position, and I'm going to shift to a fourth finger E in fourth position. So if I'm going to practice this with an old finger shift, what I would do is start with the G, shift up to fourth position using my old finger, and I'm on a B. So my guide note is a B natural, and then I place the new note. So basically you've got a two-step. I start my note, I shift 1, and then 2 is the placement of the new finger. So in your practice, you can start slowly, like I've been doing, and then gradually shorten the length of the guide note and lighten the guide note and eventually, so you bypass the guide note altogether and go straight from the first note to the arrival note of the shift. So you can also practice the component parts of the shift in isolation. So let's start with just the shift to the guide note first. So I think the biggest secret to getting your shifts to be easy and reliable is to practice them slowly back and forth, just the two notes in isolation. So like so. And that's part of a deeper principle, which is that practicing things in more than one speed, and that includes your shifts, is very helpful for your control and muscle memory. So if you've practiced the shift quite a bit in tempo, it will absolutely help you to practice it very slowly like this. If you've been doing a lot of slow practice, it may actually be helpful to practice it fast as well. So that helps to sort of give the shift a little bit of a kick in the pants and get it to move so that you don't get actually stuck in sort of a cautious shifting state, which helps you to feel more confident when you actually play your shifts in a concert. So after you practice this for a bit, you can practice the second part of the step of the shift, which is just to place the new note. So that's an easier task for sure, but just to give your hand the frame for that intonation is not a bad idea to do too. So as I've just showed you, you can practice your shifts with a guide finger. You can also practice them without, just the two notes on either side of the shift without the guide finger. So let me show you the beginning of Saint-Saëns Concerto No. 3, which I'm playing the very beginning using new finger shifts. So here's the beginning. So the first shift is a second finger B in first position to an F sharp with the third finger in fourth position. So I want to know how big that interval is. I first play my guide note, which is it's a new finger shift. It's going to be the new finger in the old position. So that's a C sharp here. That's a perfect fourth. So the actual interval is a perfect fifth, but the shift is a perfect fourth. So I know that going in. So I'm going back and forth. So, and that's just practicing the outer notes of the shift. I can also practice this with a guide finger, and if I'm going back and forth, what I might do is practice the new finger and then practice the old finger going back. So I might practice my shifting finger both up and down, which gives my hand a little bit more of a kinesthetic sense of how far that distance is in the shift. So a big point that I want to make to you, other than practicing your shifts slowly, is to hear ahead in your ear. So to imagine the arrival note before you get there. So I'm hearing the F sharp in my mind before I play the F sharp. So I'm hearing the F sharp in my mind before I play the F sharp. So this is something that's helpful to keep doing as you repeat in your drill practice. It keeps you focused and allows you to fix your intonation almost before you get to the note. So I like to tell my students about a famous Jascha Heifetz quote. When someone asked him, Mr. Heifetz, why is it that you play in tune so much better than everyone else? He replied that it's not so much that he plays in tune better than everyone else, it's that he fixes it faster. So hearing ahead helps you arrive into the note better in tune because it helps you guide the pitch and also helps focus your practice, which helps your repetitions to be more consistent. Another big point, keep your left hand light when you shift. It's so easy to squeeze when we shift because we're trying hard to play in tune, which can make us lock up and make it even harder to shift. So working to get your shifts in tune while playing with a very relaxed left arm can help prevent you from locking up in the performance. So another important point is to go for it musically in the bow while you're shifting. So don't shy away from your shifts in the bow. You can actually think about using the bow to support your shifts and think about, in fact, shifting with the bow. So when you pay attention to the right hand, it tends to take tension away from the left hand. It tends to allow your left hand to rely more on muscle memory and do a shift more by ear, which is helpful in a number of respects. So if you want to sustain or even crescendo into a high note, be aware of where you want your high note to be and go for it. So I want that to be a high note. And I want that to be a high point. So I'm using the bow to give my sound momentum into the high note. So practice your shifts slowly, hear ahead, have a light finger, and you're on your way to making your shifts a little more reliable, a little easier. So enjoy.